So today, we're going to untangle a really complex story. It connects a brand new, promising chapter for one Florida city with one of the most tragic building collapses in American history. It's this story of a really hopeful future running right up against a devastating past.
Okay, so it all kicks off with this really big, ambitious idea to redevelop the City Hall campus in downtown Boca Raton. We're talking about a plan that's set to completely change the face of the city.
But here's the twist. The development group driving this vision? Well, they're the exact same group that was a major defendant in the lawsuits after that horrific collapse of the Champlain Tower South in Surfside.
Yeah. And that's really what we're digging into today. You've got these two totally different projects, one all about a bright future, the other tied to this awful tragedy, and the same developer is right in the middle of both.
So to really get a handle on what's going on in Boca right now, we've got to rewind the clock a bit. We're going back to June of 2021 and those absolutely heartbreaking events that happened just 60 miles south, down in Surfside.
Let's start by unpacking the developer's role in the Surfside tragedy. We'll look at the lawsuit and then the huge settlement that came out of it.
So you've got June 2021, when the tower collapses. Then, just a few months later, by November, Terra Group, that's the developer, is officially named as a defendant in a huge class action lawsuit. Fast forward to mid-2022, and the whole thing ends with this massive settlement.
Before we get any deeper into the legal stuff, it's just so important to remember the human cost here. 98 people. 98 people lost their lives in that collapse. So what was the lawsuit actually about? Well, the court claim was this. The plaintiffs said that the construction happening on Terra Group's luxury condo building right next door, a place called 87 Park, caused all these vibrations. And they argued those vibrations weakened the neighboring Champlain Towers and ultimately helped cause its collapse. Now, the lawyers for the victims' families were pretty clear that they didn't think it was just one party at fault. In their court filings, they said, and I'm quoting here, "We believe they share responsibility for the Surfside collapse." Basically, they were pointing fingers at a lot of different people.
So, how did it all end? With a settlement of almost $1 billion. I mean, just think about that number. It's one of the biggest class action settlements of its kind ever in the U.S.
And while a bunch of different companies paid into that fund, the court records show that companies tied to Terra Group paid a huge chunk of it, something like $400 million.
Okay, but here's a really crucial legal point. As part of that deal, Terra Group and all the other defendants did not admit any fault. They didn't say, "We're liable." Now, this is pretty standard for civil settlements, but in this story, it's a detail you've got to remember.
All right, so with all that context from Surfside, let's pivot. Let's head back north to Boca Raton and take a look at this brand new proposal for the City Hall campus.
So what exactly are they planning to do? Well, the idea is to take the entire City Hall area and just completely transform it. We're talking a whole new mixed-use neighborhood, new places to live, new stores, restaurants, and a bunch of new public parks and green spaces.
And the big idea behind it all is to create this modern hub for the city, something that will kickstart the economy there and serve as a new gateway to downtown.
So, as you can probably guess, not everyone is thrilled about this partnership. It's become pretty controversial. Let's get into how the community is trying to balance the good stuff this project might bring against the developer's complicated history.
The whole debate really has two clear sides. You've got the supporters who are looking at this and seeing a huge economic win and a way to bring the city's downtown into the 21st century. But then you have the critics, and they're raising some serious red flags. It's not just about the developer's past with Surfside, they're also worried about how huge this project is and what it's going to do to traffic. And here's something that's really raising eyebrows. In the official proposal that Terra Group gave to the city, there was zero mention of the Surfside lawsuit or the settlement. It just wasn't there. This whole thing is bigger than just one developer or one project in Boca. It really makes you step back and think about the big questions, right? Things like accountability, building safety, and how we decide what our cities are going to look like in the future.
And let's be clear, the impact of what happened in Surfside is huge and it's lasting. That tragedy has already forced major changes to Florida law. We're talking totally new rules for building inspections, for engineering, and for what developers are held responsible for.
And that brings us right back to where we started, Boca Raton. Because for the people who live there and for the city officials, having this particular developer lead such a massive project, well, it just puts everything under a much, much brighter spotlight.
So, in the end, it all comes down to this one really tough question. A question that any growing city could face. When you're trying to build your future, how much weight do you give to a developer's past?